Will fresh electoral reforms help make INEC more transparent and efficient? And what should the electoral umpire be doing now to win the confidence of the Nigerians? We'll have Professor Adele Jinadu, who joins the conversation from our Lagos studio to look at these issues with INEC electoral reforms. Thank you for joining me, Professor. Let's start with some of the significant reforms that INEC is proposing.
Good evening.
Good evening, including replacing PVCs with computer-generated slips for voter accreditation. They say this is to reduce costs, tackle voter card buying schemes. What are your thoughts on this particular reform? And do you believe that this approach will adequately address sort of challenges that we've been having with voter disenfranchisement?
Thank you. I think to answer your question, it's important to emphasize one thing, which I think is missing from the summary you have given. INEC has not just undertaken a reform or a review of the 2023 elections and how they relate to the previous ones. It has also focused on what lessons has the organization learned from what has happened in the past since 1999 when we began the Fourth Republic. So I think it's very, very important to emphasize that. And in doing that, trying to learn the correct lessons, it has also invested a lot of intellectual manpower into the review process. Now, where do we go from there? You know, a review of this nature cannot cover what we call all the grounds, cannot anticipate what is going to happen tomorrow. But at least in terms of what they have done, I think they should be commended because they have done a self-critical evaluation themselves. Now, I think we should focus less on what recommendations they have made, as important as they are, and turn the searchlight more on what do we as Nigerians, what responsibility do we owe Nigeria, the country itself, not just INEC, what responsibility do we have ourselves to make sure that our electoral process conforms more and more to what you expect of electoral credibility, integrity. And I think that is something that is not within the compass of INEC to do. We have to focus on what are our own responsibility. Let us study what they have done. They have set out what they want to do, and we should, in fact, now take that mantle up with them and work with them to ensure that we have a higher level of electoral credibility in this country. And I think that is the major concern for me, not what they have done. Because, you see, whatever you do, a lot matters on the environment within which you are operating.
If you can hear me, yes, it's important, and you've noted the fact that INEC is learning lessons from all our past elections and what we owe Nigerians in order to make sure that our elections are up to par and up to standard. But we also have to dissect and talk about some of the recommendations that they've made, because these recommendations they say they are making in order to make our elections better, and they focused on sort of PVCs. They want to replace that with computer-generated slips, and also the introduction of the BVAS that brought calls for clearer legal frameworks when it comes to manual versus electronic result transmission. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on these two, because these two were two of them were one of the most significant sort of reforms that we've seen they've recommended.
Well, see, you're not getting my point. We should focus less on the technology and more on the environment within which you're applying it. You see, and what I am saying simply is that you cannot take that technological improvement alone without also looking at the context in which it's going to be operated. You know, if people set out to undermine technology, there's very little you can do, no matter what you try to do. And you know, INEC requires more than 1 million ad hoc staff in terms of conduct of elections. So that is also another problem. So what I am simply saying is that, yes, they have put these recommendations together. And for me, they look, fine as far as I can tell from my own little technical knowledge. But what is more important for me is that are Nigerians ready? Are they ready to take up the responsibility of making sure that the electoral process is credible. It is not a problem for INEC alone. It has the responsibility, but it is also INEC has done its own work. So we should now begin to say, how are Nigerians going to engage what it has done, regardless of whatever it has said? So I think that is the point I think we need to address, because we tend to spend too much time on over legislation, the process, and too little time about making us better citizens who will in fact defend in many countries. I mean, in Canada, for example, they have perfect elections, but they also don't use technology because the citizens. So the point I'm simply making is that, you know, there is much more important thing in what you have suggested than just this PVC. For example, a major recommendation they have made is, in fact, to unbundle INEC, which is a recommendation that has been made over since 2007 by the West Commission, about the Electoral Violence Commission. We have done nothing about them since 1999, and we are more concerned with technology.
But Professor,
so the point is that what can we?
Yes, you spoke about unbundling its responsibilities, just basically suggesting that the establishment of an electoral offense tribunal and a separate agency for political party regulation. And you've made your point on the fact that Nigerians are actually ready for some of these reforms rather than focusing on the technicalities or the process. But I think it's also important to focus on the process, because that is how we will get to having standardized elections, free and fair, up to par elections. But Professor, I wanted to ask you on some of the comments that you've made recently, where you said that the political elite have already begun the process of rigging the 2027 elections by appointing party loyalists as INEC commissioners. And I just wanted to ask you what sort of basis you made that comment on, and what it means, that comment that you made.
You know, I think you have to look at the paper I presented yesterday in its totality. That part has been highlighted. The point I was simply making is that from my own training, I look at the large picture. I look at the trends, and I read between the lines, and I am worried by what I see already in terms of a process that is being put in place that will disempower INEC through deliberate infusion, deliberate appointment of party loyalists as INEC INEC commissioners. That process has started. It's not just started. It is really deep in our history. But it is reaching that dimension now where Nigerians should be up and doing and resist any attempt to infiltrate INEC with party loyalists. That danger is very present, is clear and present as far as I'm concerned. That process has started. And the appointment of members of INEC is simply one aspect of it. The second aspect is through procurement. Not only for corrupt enrichment, but also to build a war chest to fight elections. So I think these are things that Nigerians should worry about, not just about the technicalities of it. How do you do it? How do you do that? That we must be alive to our responsibility in terms of making sure that if we know anybody who is a party loyalist, who is being put forward as an INEC commissioner, the civil society should stand up and raise hell about it, because it is a future that is being played with by the politicians.
All right, Professor Jinadu, who is a professor of political science, Babcock University. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight.